This past Saturday, a week ago, shots were fired at a supermarket in Buffalo, New York. 10 people were killed by a mass shooter. Well, we're going to talk about that on today's Charlie Crime Buster, what some people are calling, well, they're calling it the fastest minutes in podcasting. Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Charlie Crime Buster, where we'll talk about the mass shooting that happened a week ago this last Saturday. That's there in New York. But right now, I want to welcome our listeners. Yeah, you will not want to miss this episode. You will learn or relearn the stages of a mass shooter, and that may help save lives, including your own. Now, if you're new to the program, I want to thank you and welcome you. I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me directly. Email me at charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. And for those who reach out this week, well, a special welcome gift from yours truly will come your way. Make sure you leave your contact info for us. Hey, also, please check us out at charliecrimebuster.com. There you're going to have access to all of our past podcasts as well. Now, whether you're new or not, please take the time to give us a 5-star rating. That's there on your favorite platform. Hey, that will enable us to get the program out to more people, and that is a plus for all of us. Now, we would not be doing you right without first giving you an opportunity to support our crime-fighting heroes. That includes our law enforcement, first responders, and, of course, the military. You can support them by becoming a badge supporter. Go to peacemakernetwork.com. That's peacemakernetwork.com. There you can join and help support these brave men and women for as little as $3 a month. Hey, do that today. Now to our focus. On this past Saturday, a week ago, that's May the 14th, around 2:30 p.m., a man that's now been identified as Peyton Gendron, well, he opened fire on customers at a Tops supermarket in Buffalo, New York. When he finished, 10 people were killed, 3 were wounded. Now, the Buffalo Police Commissioner, he stated that he was heavily armed, this gunman. He was wearing tactical gear, including a tactical helmet, along with plated armor. And, get this, he had a camera that he was live streaming his actions. Now, as we look at this mass shooting today, it's important for us to place it in context of other mass shootings. There are, of course, a variety of definitions of a mass shooting. The best definition is by Mother Jones. It is a single act in a public place where 4 or more are killed. But since 2013, that changed the threshold. That threshold is now 3 or more victims being killed, and that change was due to a federal mandate that was issued by President Obama. Remember, a mass shooting is not a family dispute. It's not a shootout among gang members. Or drive-by shootings are some party that gets out of hand. Mass shootings occur in public places. Usually follows what I can call 3 different types of events. Well, with that in mind, this past Saturday's mass shooting, well, it was the second one in this year of 2022. Now, this can be compared actually back to one way back in 1982, one in 2000, 12 in 2018. By the way, last year, according to statistics, there were 6 mass shootings recorded. Now, let's start out by identifying and learning about our shooter, Peyton Gendron. While you cannot find a lot online and in the media about Peyton Gendron, what you do find is very disturbing. When I say online, I'm talking about his past life as a child and this sort of thing. You can certainly see plenty of things about him today, as we know him as the mass shooter. You see about Peyton Gendron, well, it's very disturbing indeed. This was a young man in trouble, albeit it does appear that he was very good at hiding it, particularly from his parents. You see, Peyton posted in his hidden posts that his parents, Paul and Pamela, well, they came close to discovering his well-hidden plot, at least on half a dozen occasions. For instance, on February the 20th, Pamela, his mom, she actually picked up and laundered the liner of her son's combat helmet. Perhaps she didn't even know what she was laundering at the time. And according to the more of 600 pages of online messages that he kept in this secret posting, it was revealed on March the 5th, according to those same messages, that Paul, his father, he failed to notice that his son had actually used his computer to upgrade his cell phone plan so that he could live stream. This, of course, was his plans to live stream his attack at the East Side Tops supermarket in Buffalo, New York. And even more troubling, on March the 29th, now, both parents, again, according to Peyton's messages, his parents, they confronted Peyton about his behavior over the prior week. During that time, he said he stabbed, beaten, and decapitated a cat. He also, by the way, received a ticket in the mail for speeding. That was on his way to surveil the Jefferson Avenue supermarket. Now, Peyton, he stated in his messages that he had lied to his parents the entire time. He told them he was doing fine in school and going to every class. And then he says he hadn't been to class for weeks now, but he lied to his parents about that. Now, this writing, which began in November 2021, and which he intended for publication. There, he described a distant and sometimes adversarial relationship between Peyton and his parents, both who were civil engineers. For a period of months, he writes that he repeatedly lied, hid, disassembled a secret plan to conduct mass murder. Even during that time, he was ordering hundreds of dollars of body armor, ordering that, having it sent to their house, modified an assault rifle in his childhood bedroom. And he did grow increasingly concerned that maybe his behavior had aroused their suspicions. But get this now. His parents did not know that he owned an AR-15 or illegal magazines, and did not realize that he was what he called a white supremacist. And we know from the parents that they certainly did not share his views. Now keep in mind, this all comes from his own hidden writings. And at this time, it's not verified by his parents or those that were close to him that what he is writing about is actually true about he and his parents. But here is what law enforcement has confirmed. They did confirm that he did withdraw from his school there in New York, at New York Broome. He did receive the March 8th speeding ticket that he referred to. And as it often does, unfortunately, social postings, on the social pages of the family, they show a smiling family of 5, Paul, Pamela, and their 3 sons. You see them vacationing in Myrtle Beach, even posing with matching red and black plaid pajamas. Other later postings, they include family vacations, camping, home decorating, and even religious quotes. Now, friends and relatives of the family, they told the New York Post that this family was, quote, close-knit, quote, God-fearing, and, quote, well-to-do people. A friend even said that Peyton's parents did not even allow violent video games in their home. These were successful career parents who appeared not to realize that there was a pressure kettle streaming over right under their noses. However, there was one instance that should have alerted everyone. Law enforcement, parents, and all others. Alerted them to have kept a closer look at young Peyton Gendon. Well, we're going to get to that in a moment. But right now, my friend, it is time for what we call our Courageous Citizen of the Week story. And interesting enough, it happened a day after, or actually around the same time, of this shooting. David Chow, he's 68. He's of Las Vegas. He was a U.S. citizen. Authorities said that he grew up in Tuan. Well, he drove on to Orange County on Saturday, May the 14th. Now, the next day, he attended lunch held by the Irvin Presbyterian Church. They worshiped there at the Geneva Presbyterian Church in the community of Laguna Woods. Though he knew no one there, he actually spent about an hour mingling with about 40 attendees. And then he executed his plot. That's what authorities said in the new conference. Now, authorities said that Chow he chained the doors of the church. He put super glue in the keyholes. Now, get this: he had 2 9mm handguns legally purchased years ago in Las Vegas. He had 3 bags containing bomb-type things, and he had extra ammunition. And there, that day, he opened fire. And in all that chaos, now get this, there was one man, a doctor there, a doctor by the name of Dr. John Chang. He was 52 years of age. He tackled him, and he allowed the other parishioners to subdue him, tie him up with extension cords. Now, Barnes said that Chang, he was a sports medicine doctor, and now he is survived by a wife and 2 children. But yet that day he charged at the shooter. He attempted to disarm him. He allowed others to intervene. Chang had actually hit the gunman on the head with a chair. That was before the other parishioners subdued the gunman. Well, Chang, this heroic man, died, and 5 other people were wounded. The oldest was 92 years of age. And Sheriff Don Barnes, well, he called Chang's heroism, he said, a meeting of good versus evil. And that probably saved the lives, get this, of upwards dozens of people. This 52-year-old doctor, who without thought of his own life and safety, confronted and helped subdue this gunman in this church, and he lost his life in the process. This man is indeed Charlie Crimebuster's Courageous Citizen of the Week, and we remember and honor him on today's podcast. Now back to our main focus. Shots fired in Buffalo at a supermarket. The one thing that should have alerted everyone around this young man, well, it actually happened about 1 year ago. That's in June 2021. State police there brought Peyton to a local hospital, get this, for a mental evaluation after he had, quote, made a generalized threat of violence against his school. This is what Buffalo Police Commissioner said during a recent press conference. Now, there was a government official. He told Buffalo News that Gendron had, quote, made statements indicated he wanted to do a shooting, either at the graduation ceremony or sometime after. Now, after making the threat, Gendron, he went to a local hospital. He was there about a day and a half. He was evaluated, and he was released. My friend, this is huge. Now, this, to my opinion, would bear the parents of keeping a much, much closer eye on their young son. You combine this with the horrific execution of a cat that we read about. Well, my friend, he should have been put under a microscope, and it just might have avoided the following from happening. Now, last Saturday, a week ago, after having scoped the supermarket out and choosing this supermarket, he chose it as one of the most predominant in the black neighborhoods. He drove 200 miles from his small hometown of Conklin, New York, and he arrived in East Buffalo the day before the attack, there to recon the grocery store. You see, the shoot there out at Tops Friendly Markets began that Saturday at 2:30 p.m. It began in a parking lot outside the store. By the way, the first police officers arrived, get this, 1 minute later. Now, the gunman, he stepped out of his car wearing tactical gear. He opened fire with a rifle, shooting 4 people. 3 of those died, by the way. Then the gunman worked his way into the store, and there he was confronted by a security guard by the name of Aaron Saltler. He attempted to stop the shooter by firing his gun, but even though he struck the target, the gunman's body armor shielded him from the bullet. The suspect then shot and killed the security guard. Now, he was eventually confronted by police after shooting several others. He was confronted by police at the front of the store. Now, he briefly pointed the rifle at his neck. That was before the police persuaded him to drop his guns and surrender. And the gunman, he even live-streamed the attack on the platform Twitch. Fortunately, that stream was shut down in less than 2 minutes after the violence began. Now, the shooter, Peyton Gendron, well, he published a 180-page document. He published that to a secret message board, 4chan it's called. That was before carrying out the attack. And this document had verified his white supremacist status. Payton had said that extreme boredom during the pandemic led him to the internet, and there he developed his white supremacist status. By the way, when he purchased the weapon, well, the background check, get this, it showed nothing out of the order. Nothing out of the order, even though he had threatened a school shooting less than a year ago and had been hospitalized for this. So there you have it. But what is really going on with these mass shootings? Is it as simple as labeling it as a hate crime or someone with mental problems? Well, we're going to get into that in a moment. Now, usually we lighten the load of this type of reporting with a crazy crook story, but today it really doesn't seem right to do so with this tragic story of so many people killed. So let me instead share with you some vital research about mass shootings. Now, while it is very evident that this mass shooting is indeed a hate crime, and Payton Gendron was a white supremacist who by his own admission formulated this persona while he was searching the internet during his pandemic, but it does bear in questioning how many mass shootings are actual hate crimes. Now, there are those that are reporting this in itself as a pandemic of hate crimes, or an epidemic, I should say. But first, let me say that one hate crime, mass shooting, well, that's one too many. No excuse for that. Worse punishment should be rendered for hate crimes, in my opinion. But facts tell us, now get this, that among the mass shootings, hate crimes are not the highest reasons. In fact, in 50% of mass shooting, in the studies, the cause is simply, quote, unknown. And there's a very, very interesting article in the Washington Post. It highlighted a study by James Densley. He is a professor of criminal justice at Metro State University, and also another associate professor of criminology by the name of Julian Peterson at Hamline University. You see, both of these guys, they run something called the Violence Project, and they're authors of, quote, The Violence Project, How to Stop a Mass Shooting Epidemic. Now get this, their research showed that hate and terrorism, as they are commonly understood, well, they're really not what drives most mass shooters. In dozens of interviews with perpetrators and the people that know them, well, it revealed that they often have this very same motivation. That motivation is simply this: to cause as much death and destruction as possible, so that the world, now get this, that had otherwise ignored them, now would be forced to notice them and feel their own anguish. Remember, Payton, the Buffalo shooter? He wanted to live stream his actions. He wanted to be noticed. Now, research also reveals that these mass shooters, well, they sometimes walk a common route to violence. And usually it's through early childhood trauma. And all of them, well, they fail to achieve what they've been socialized to believe was their destiny. They fail to achieve material wealth, or success, or power, or notoriety, or happiness. This as they reach an age where they reach a crisis point. You see, when they feel no longer connected to people and places around them, well, then it becomes what is called a suicidal crisis. In fact, if you remember, well, Payton, in his writings, he talked about his weapon, one of the weapons, and how he planned at first, get this, to commit suicide with it. And this study, well, it reveals that these mass shooters do think of suicide. Except, now get this, the thought of them merely taking their own lives, well, that still leaves them unfulfilled. There was a sister of one perpetrator, well, he told them in the research, she said her brother went from asking what's wrong with me to asking what's wrong with them. In other words, think about this, my friend. People who are living fulfilled lives are not mass shooters. You see, these mass shooters, they're searching now They're already very unsettled with their lives. They really are not achieving anything. They don't feel fulfilled. But now they search the internet into the dark corners to try to find something to rationalize what they're about to do. And this, my friend, this is where hate comes into the picture. You see, searching for answers, well, these angry men, well, they comb through words and deeds of other angry men who came before. Yep, you got it, including past mass shooters. You see this in Gendron's own research. They search the darkest corners of the internet, and eventually they find someone or something else to blame for their own despair. You see, they often choose scapegoats. And these scapegoats, well, they represent their grievance with the world. It might be people at their school, their workplace, a place of worship. And in the case of Buffalo, it was a grocery store. A grocery store frequented by black people. So we usually, all of us, we kind of take the easy path to understanding it, don't we? We create labels to explain away the problem of mass shootings. Mental illness becomes an example. Well, if a person has a mental health diagnosis, well, my friend, that really doesn't mean that every action is related to that diagnosis, or that their symptoms cause them to pull the trigger. In fact, in the research, get this, only about 10% of mass shooters were actually directed by psychotic delusions. One thing is clear about these mass shooters. They are not people who live fulfilled lives. You see, these actions of mass shooters, well, they're designed to be the perpetrator's final act. You see, this is what is important to realize in preventing them. They're actively suicidal. Whether they kill themselves or are killed by the police, suicide by cop, or even if they face the death penalty or spend the rest of their lives in prison, one thing is clear about these mass shooters. They have no plan for what comes next. This is their big moment. And this is the core of the problem. That's also why traditional measures, well, they really do little to avert them, don't they? Now, this does not mean we can't detect and intervene. There are things to help us do so. And of course, we do need to expand suicide prevention programs. We need better access to mental health programs. And we do need to hold the media and social media companies accountable, only in a fair and balanced way, by the way. And we do need to identify high-risk individuals. And there's one other very important tool to stop these shootings. You need to understand the active shooter phases. We've mentioned that in prior podcasts. You see them all quite evident in this mass shooting. There are phases that you can follow. I call them the 5 P's of a mass shooting. Number 1, the planning stage. And this goes as far back as last year when he telegraphed to others that he was planning a mass shooting at perhaps his graduation as high school. There was something definitely wrong with this young man. Number 2 is what I call the procurement stage. You see, Peyton shares in his own writings how he was ordering on Amazon body armor. Ammo was procured. Weapons were procured. They were there in the home. My friend, somebody should have been looking for those, in my opinion. Number 3 is what we call the practice stage. His speeding ticket from traveling afar to scope out the target. That would have been a red flag. His own words describing how they went to the forest to shoot, even up to his recon of the supermarket the day before. They're all things to be on the lookout for, especially when he had already threatened a shooting less than 1 year ago. Next comes the next 2 phases. These are the ones that are most difficult to stop. Number 4 is the positioning stage. He got out of his vehicle. Maybe he could have been spotted earlier on getting into position for this terrible actions of that day. There was somewhere that he put his armor on. Where was it? Did somebody see him? And if they saw him, did they say something? Maybe a passerby saw him as he put his armor on. If that had only happened, maybe it could have been stopped. But unfortunately, he came out of the vehicle shooting. Next is what we call the participation stage. And thanks to a security guard, he did what he was supposed to do. He confronted the gunman. Even shot the gunman. But the body armor and the fact that the security guard was not as armed up as this gunman, well, that cost this security guard his life. But it was his brave courage that took up valuable time from the gunman killing others, and it did allow the police time to get there. Who knows how many more would have died, yet for the actions of this brave security officer, a retired cop continuing to serve the community in his retirement, who intervened in the participation actions of the gunman. Let's review those stages again. There, of course, is the planning. There is the procurement. There is the practice. There's the placement. And there's the participation. You see, if we can spot the gunman in earlier phases, there's an opportunity to stop a mass shooter. It has and is being done today. In my own community, just months ago, a college shooter was caught. He was caught because a student saw something and said something. And this potential mass shooter, he was arrested on his way to the shooting range to practice his shooting, get this, on the very day he planned to carry out his attack. So our lesson today, my friend, is quite simple. If you see something, say something. And even if you see suspicious behavior, report it. Keep a diligent eye on possible danger. And my friend, that's why we can no longer ignore those who are living unfulfilled lives all around us. Those who find themselves drifting into dark corners of life. If you know someone that way, help them out, get them help, follow up on them. You may save more lives than even their own. So my friend, this is Charlie Crimebuster, reminding you until this time next time, stay safe, stay alert, for the life you save, it may be your very own.